In the depths of a tropical lancer, surrounded by the Indian Ocean, a ruler rose whose cruelty made even the most-feared tyrants of history seem merciful. Her name echoes through the centuries as a whisper of terror on thuins that sweep across Madagascar. Ranavalona, the queen who turned her paradise into hell and cut their nation's population in half during Heron. In 1828, a dark ceremony unfolded at Thuriel Palace of Antananarivo. A 46-year-old woman, her eyes radiating unyielding determination, knelt as the blood of a freshly sacrificed bull poured over her skin. Priests chanted ancestral hymns, sealing with blood the start of a rig remembered as the years of darkness. Ramavo, now known as Ranavalona I, had just ascended the throne of Madagascar following the suspicious death of her husband, King Ranavalona I. Her path to the crown wasn't predestined, but built with deadly cunning. Born around 1788 as a commoner Namadreva, her life changed when her father exposed an assassination plot against King Andrian, Ampo Nimirina, as a reward. The king adopted her and arranged her marriage to his son Radama. But the marriage was loveless. Radama kept 12 wives, and Dramavo was never his favorite. Worse, he had executed several of her closer relatives, planting seeds of deep resentment that would one day bloom into bloody vengeance. Radama, I was an ordinary monarch, progressive for his time. He expanded the Marina Kingdom, unifying much of Madagascar. He opened the country to Western influence, allowing Christian missionists, forging ties with Britain and promoting execution. But this openness angered a traditionalist at court, including Gramavo, who secretly built alliances with religious and military leaders. When Radama died, the rightful heir was his nephew, Rakatob. Ramavo acted swiftly and brutally before the kings. Death was Bubliklik. She mobilized soldiers from her hometown, seized the palace, and declared herself queen. Those supporting the traditional land of succession had a choice: Exceptra Novola Ordi. In mere hours, she crushed all opposition. Rakato and his parents were re-eliminated. Few royals survived the way of executions. Citizens trembled. A snowball scrambled. To adapt to a new reality, a woman of peasant origin no sit on the throne, defying sacro traditions. If her rise was bloody, what followed would turn Madagascar into a slaughterhouse. Ranavalona despised foreigners and their ideas. To her sovereignty meant isolation and the preservation of ancestral customs, regardless of the Hamankist. In 1835, after surviving a mysterious illness, she credited her recovery to the power of the Sampi, Madagascar's 12 sacred talismans. This convinced her to eliminate all foreign influence. She issued a decree banning Christian new under penalty of death. What followed was a persecution off biblical scale. Christians were hunted across Thailand. Those who refused to renounce their faith faced horrific torture. Some were thrown off cliffs, their bodies shattering on the rocks. Others were boiled alive. Some were crucified. Cruel irony not lost on the victims. In 1836, 14 Christians were executed on a single day. Missionaries faced a grim choice: fleeing, abandon their converts, or stay and face martyrdom. Many fled, which Ranavalona mocked. See how your leaders abandon you? Their foreign gods have no power here. One of her most feared punishments was the tanga ordeal. Suspects were forced to drink poison from the tanga nut, along with 3 pieces of chicken skin. If they vomited all 3 pieces, they were innocent. If not, they died in agony. Between 5,000 and 10,000 people did this way every year. Even corpses were subjected to tonga, the dead cold and vomit, so their guilt was proven, letting the crown seize their assets. Though Tanjana was part of Malaga Satan under Ranavalona, it became his terror. Its preparation was ritualistic. Panasandri. Priests chanted while grinding the toxic nuts. Victims swear starved for 24 hours beforehand. One famous victim was Adriana Miaja, a high-ranking officer and Drana's former lover, possibly the father of her child. When linked romanticalito, another woman, she demanded he took the tanga. He refused. choosing a quick death instead. Calmly, he instructed the executioner where to thrust the spear in his neck. Ranavalona's cruelty wasn't limited to her people. When France tried to invade in 1849, her troops not only repelled them, they captured 21 European soldiers and bedded them. Their heads were mounted in stakes along the coast as a bloody warning. This event fueled her belief in her divine power and increased her megalomania. As her reign continued, she became more erratic. The phantom forced labor in place of taxis expanded. Peasants were drafted as soldiers, porters, or laborers on endless projects. Many starved far from home. Some carried the queen on stretchers 4 miles only to be left to die when no longer needed. Whole villages were conscripted with little notice. Those who refused saw their homes burned with their familiars. Workers didn't know if they'd be gone for days or years. No pay, no food, no shelter. Pregnant women labored until giving birth, off to Nuna tanned. Deaths were so common that corpses lined the roads. One infamous project was her summer palace in the mountains. Over 50,000 workers hauled massive stones for kilometers without tools. Around 10,000 died over 2 years. When told of the death toll, Ranavalona allegedly replied, "Stone and lime mix better with blood. The palace will last longer." She visited it only 3 times before deciding the weather wasn't pleasant. Her army of 20,000 to 30,000 Marina soldiers regularly crushed a Belioscrisp. Villages were destroyed. Survivors enslaved. Atrocities were rampant. Children beheaded in front of parents, pregnant. Women disemboweled so soldiers schooled bet on the baby's sex. Men burned a day live in their homes. Her paranoia worsened with age. She ordered executions over the smallest suspicions. A bad dream could mean death for dozens. Tripping in her presence, or even a long stare was fatal. She believed cloud shapes were spells. Cast against her, subjects had touched the skies and report anything strange. Dozens were executed for collaborating with cloud sorcerers. She banned the color purple. People burned purple clothes, feathers, even flowers. Despite rejecting Western politics and religion, Ranavalona was fascinated by European culture, especially French. She kept a broken piano and forced courtiers to wear French clothes. She became obsessed with soap, learned its recipe from missionaries, and banned Christianity but kept public baths. She retained a handful of Europeans, mostly artisans, at her court. The most notable was Jean Laber, French engineer shipwrecked in 1832. Instead of executing him, she made him industrial advisor. Under him, factories, weapons, textiles, and ammo were built. Her reign wrecked Madagascar's economy by cutting off trade with Europe. She turned to the slave trade. War captive espoir sold abroad. When that was Nia, even Marina villagers, her own people, were enslaved. Families were torn apart, sent to plantations. Women and children sold to the Middle East. Conditions were so brutal that many died of. Suffocation bore a rival. Her son Prince Ricoto, later Radama II, was shaped by French influence. Unlike his mother, he opposed cruelty and was loved by the people. He often intervened to save the condemned or block tangent rituals. This enraged his mother, who saw him as weak. She forced him tautinous executions to toughen him up. "I've looked away," she mocked him publicly. In the 1850s, Joseph Francis Lamb, a French businessman, came to Madagascar, helped suppress a local revolt, and earned a meeting with the Queen. There he met Jean, labor and shared knowledge about arms, agriculture, and construction. Lambert bonded with Prince Ricoto. Together, they drafted the Lambert Charter in 1855, granting Lambert resource rights in exchange for help toppling Ranavalona. France later used this as a pretext for colonization. Lambert returned to Europe to seek support. He failed, but returned in 1857 to attempt the coup anyway. Theplet was discovered. The Queen ordered anonymology, expelled or executed. Lambert and a few escaped too. Mauritius. The plot's failure triggered renewed blood. Ranavalona believed. Her suspicions about Christians and foreigners were confirmed. Elabese, Persecution resumed with savage intensity. Bounties were paid for denouncing Christians. Executions became even more sadistic. She did not, however, kill her Saul, perhaps her only act of mercy. Instead, she kept him prisoner in Thepales, constantly watched. Held her back, or perhaps she feared killing her only higher. Her final years, her cruelty peaked. Servants were executed for trivial mistakes, a dropped trayment, being thrown off a cliff. An unpopularity in waiting might be buried alive. She reportedly enjoyed banquets during executions, commenting on victims' endurance. She invented death races, condemned prisoners, ran across fields while soldiers chased them with spears. If they reached a line, they lived. Few ever did. Quarters lived in constant fear. Some slept with dirt pouches to swallow and die quickly. If summoned, others hid poison in rings. She developed a morbid obsession with death when she ordered a rhinoceros, even though none lived in Madagascar, when told she had Thea messengers executed, and sent hunters anyway. Hundreds died searching for an imaginary beast. Her madness reached new heights when she ordered corpses exhumed and forced to work soldiers, tied decomposing bodies to posts to simulate labor. The stench poisoned entire villages. In August 1861, Ranavalona I, the wife, finally did tow the relief of her people in Thorold. She was 73. The morning of her death brought silence to Antananarivo. People cautiously emerged, unsure if it was safe to rejoice. The word spread, a quiet celebration for Ledley streets. They say she refused last rites, screaming the demons were coming for her. Her final words, they come with chains of fire. 1,000. Soul scream, my name. She let out an inhuman scream, Andied, her face frozen in terror. Her funeral was elaborate, not out of respect but fear. Priests performed rites to keep her spirit from returning. She was buried with amulets, not to protect her body, but to trap her soul. Her Dama, too, her son, reversed her policies. He reopened the country, allowed religious freedom, abolished tanja, and sought diplomatic. But his liberal reforms engored conservatives. Just 18 months later, he was strangled in a coup. Mother's culture of brutality had taken root too deeply. Ranavalona's legacy is contradictory. Her cruelty kept Madagascar free from colonial rule briefly. Some see her isolationism as early nationalism. But the human toll was unimaginable. In 33 years, she cut the population in half. She shattered the economy and left a nation scarred. Villages vanished. Bloodlines ended. Traditions were twisted to serve her megalomania. The long-term damage was severe. Suspicion of foreigners and fear of change slowed modernization. What weakened economy left Madagascar vulnerable to French colonization in 1896, the very fate she fought so hard to avoid. Even now in Madagascar, her name is whispered with dread. Mothers frighten children with tales of the bloody queen. Offerings are left not in henner, but to calm her spirit. Like many tyrants, Ranavalona sought immortality through fear, and in a way, she achieved it. 2 centuries later, her name still chills the spine. Like conquerors from Bird for Glory, she's remembered for systematically destroying her Pipliant culture. The horror of her legusiles, not just in those she killed, Bhutan. The millions never born because after entire generation arrest. In the pantheon of history's most brutal rulers, Ranavalona stands alone. A queen whose cruelty was suppressus, so complete and so relentless, it defies comprehension. She didn't just turn paradise into hell. She built a new hell, a monument to depravity that still haunts the human imagination.